Hey there, CIS170. I'm sorry for the look and hopefully not the sound of this. I am experiencing issues, which is a little unusual for a Mac, and here we are. So I'm going to get this out of the way hopefully quickly because this is take 3 and that's really uncommon, and I just hope it bloody saves this time around. This is session 13, which I hardly believe being able to use those words. So that means we have this session and 2 more before we have the final. So if you need to calibrate your expectations of how little time it is that we have left, those are scary things to think about. In this session, we actually have 2 chapters, which I will admit to you is a little different than usual, but I have found it's the best way to address the content for chapters 8 and 9 is really to think of them as one big chapter. So there's 2 things happening here, and this is the reason that I want them to go together. In chapter 8, we take our first steps in the really the most important thing we'll cover here in the second half of this semester in this class is the idea of modularization. It is taking things that we do again and again and again and again and say, instead of just like copying and pasting and reusing code again and again and again, why don't we name these things that we do constantly, like getting an input for the user? If we do that again and again, why write it again and again? Have one module that we can use and refer to numerous times. If we have output that we know we are going to give to the user, why format it numerous times when we can do it once and refer to it again and again? In so doing, we create what are known as modules, small, single-purpose bits of code that allow us to use them again and again in new and different ways, potentially, without having to recreate code all the time. In chapter 9, the big idea there is reporting. And for those of you who were looking at a career in computer science and said to yourselves, thank goodness I never have to create reports, here's where I have to tell you honestly that the biggest, easiest way to get paid in computer and data sciences now is with reporting, because that's what businesses are really relying on. All this data it is that we're collecting is so that they can generate reports, so that they can find and identify trends and meet those trends in whatever way makes the most sense for that business. And the way we communicate that in an industry is with reporting. And that's really what chapter 9 does, is it says, let's take this aggregated data, let's simplify it in a way that we can communicate it to other people, and let's aggregate it. So let's create counters based on however many times a condition is seen, so that way we can communicate in really clear terms what it is that the trends are that we are seeing. The real rationale to putting 8 and 9 together is as follows. The examples in chapter 8 are shallow, and the examples in chapter 9 are fantastic in comparison. So if you read the materials, chapters 8 and 9, as if they were one chapter, the examples from chapter 9 make the content from chapter 8 much more relatable, because their examples are much less artificial. So rather than break these up into 2 sessions, I just always feel like if I do that, the content from 8 for some of you is totally unusable. And it's not until later on that you actually see better modules in chapter 9 that it makes a little bit more sense. So I've started putting them together about 2 years ago, and the reaction is much better this way. So for this session, session 13, you have chapters 8 and 9 together. One more note here is with the chapter 7 material, not the search and sort challenges, but the end of chapter exercises from chapter 7. If I gave to you the typical make these changes, resubmit, message me, earn as many as half the points back commentary, you need to do that by the end of this session. Chapter 10 material really isn't, you'll see it when we get there. And then essentially we move to one more project, and then we move to the final. So I don't want that chapter 7 material sitting out here forever. The same with 8 and 9 after next session. So if you have 7 material where I gave you the opportunity to resubmit it, get that resubmitted by the end of this session, or I won't take it. And as always, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So it's a little bit more to bite off this week than in some other weeks. So make sure that you are getting a move on 170. So go get a move on.